Welcome to this video on Visual Studio Code version 1.102 that was released in July 2025. I will take you over the new features that became available, and I hope you enjoy. The extension for Copilot in Visual Studio Code is now open source. That means that you can check that repository and check what's going on. You can check any pull requests that are open, from which you can tell what the developers are currently working on. But we can also search, for example, and an interesting search here is UR, because generally that's what system prompts start with. So if we take a look at the search results here, I can see an interesting one here in doc intent, so let's open up that file. And as you can see part of, or actually a system prompt. You are an AI programming assistant. When asked for your name, you must respond with GitHub Copilot, etc. So this is really great because you can see on the background how GitHub Copilot works. Another interesting use case might be if you want to inform people about what telemetry is sent to GitHub from the GitHub Copilot Chat Extension. So there's a lot to do here. I would certainly invite you to take a look around for yourself. Keep in mind that you can file issues in this repository, but the repositories are currently still tracked in the Visual Studio Code repository, and they are planning to merge the two so you have one experience to cover them all. Keep also in mind this covers the chat extension. If you're looking for any API to implement your own code completions, there is still the Copilot language server release repository from GitHub where you can implement your own code completion using a language server SDK. GitHub Copilot has 3 different modes in chat: Ask, Edit, and Agent. In Ask, you can easily get Copilot to explain your solution. You can brainstorm. You can ask general questions. Then in Edit mode, when you know what to change, you drag the files that are covered by that change in your context, and then you ask Copilot to do the change. In Agent mode, however, GitHub Copilot is much more autonomous. So you ask it to make changes, it will get the right files into the context that are needed for the change. And what it can do is it can use tools. So tools are either running locally or an MCP server that can run local or remote, with which you have access, for example, to your file system or to any external systems. What you can do now is you can create your own mode. So apart from Ask, Edit, and Agent mode, you can create your own mode. To do so, you go to the cog here and you click Modes. And that opens up a menu where I can plus for the create new custom chat mode file because it's described in Markdown. This is the location where you store it. If you put it in .github/chat modes, it will be available for anyone that has access to your repository. If you store it in your user data folder, it's personal to you, so it won't be available to any fellow developers. And then I need to enter the name. The name is also the name with which it will appear in the menu. So I'll name mine test for now. It already exists, so test2, that's okay. So this is the file. It comes by default with a description that will be shown whenever you hover over the mode, and you can configure tools. So tools are either local tools or MCP servers. And what I choose here is, in this case, Codebase and Fetch. I click OK. And if I hover over any of these things, it will describe it for me. So in this case, this tool will give Copilot access to the current workspace, and Fetch fetches content from a web page. So this will really help you determine what's happening here. There is also a hidden feature. What you can do is you can provide the default model that this chat mode will work with. So, and the funny thing here is that the list is not complete. So for example, I can type here GPT GPT-4.1, which is currently the default model used in GitHub Copilot, which is accepted as well. There are also models like O3 Mini that don't work. As you can see by the squiggly line, it's not accepting it, and that's because O3 Mini is not available in agent mode. So it's a limited amount of models that you can use here. And if I now backspace and type again, sometimes it shows more models. Oh, there we go, without the space. So as you can see now, GPT-4.1, GPT-4o also appear. So these are also available in this chat mode. And of course, you can leave out the entire property, and then it will use the mode that is active at the moment that you're choosing this chat mode. And then you can describe what this chat mode will do. And for that, I will go to my demo file. So I'll close this one and don't save it. I created a chat mode which is called Prompt Improver. And what this will do is it will not generate any code, but it will rather take a look at the prompt that you ask it, and then it will improve that prompt. So I used Markdown here, so I give it the goal. The goal is to improve the prompt by asking specific questions and asking for clarification. And then I define several steps. So the conversation start. I wanted to carefully check what is asked. Then getting input to the questions. So after the 3 questions that I asked before, ask the user to answer them one by one. And then verify every input. And this is a crucial part. What I want Copilot to do is if there is no ambiguity in the answer of the person that is talking to Copilot. And then the summary should be the new prompt that the user can use to start working. All right, so this is the chat mode file. And now we need to make sure that that we're going to use it. So let's show you where to find it. So here at the bottom, currently we're in agent mode, but if I unfold this, you can see that there's now 3 custom modes, the previous tests that I did, and we have the prompt improver. So if I select this one, now the prompt that we just described in the Markdown is going to be used for anything that I will be asking. So the first thing that I will do, I will use the GPT-4.1 model, and I'll ask a very basic question to the model, and let me copy paste that so you don't need to wait for me typing. There we go. We're asking it to create a controller based on this class. And apologies, because I first need to open the specific class, which is here in models, and that is Airfield. So I'm opening a new chat and asking the question again. And now it has context, of course, it has access to airfield.cs. So it doesn't know about any other controllers that I have in my class. So it's asking me questions like, what operations do you want to support? Should it interact with a database or in memory storage? And any specific requirements. Okay, I could proceed with that, but I want to go one step further. And that is by asking the same question, but then instead of just providing access to airfield.cs, I'm adding hash codebase, and that will give Copilot access to the entire codebase. So I expect it now to have a better understanding of what my other controllers look like, and that it would come with a better, with 3 better questions to improve my prompt. So as you can see, it's verifying all kinds of directories now, and there are this is a description apparently of my my project, summary of key files. And now it starts working on my request. So in my prompt is the question to ask me 3 questions to improve the prompt. So the first one is, again, what operations would you like the airfield controller to support? And the funny thing is, here now it is suggesting get all airfields for example. So it's way more like the rest of my project, where it's not just CRUD, but it will describe what it is getting or updating. And it's even referring to another controller, so it knows about this. So yeah, providing a little bit of context always helps. But now let's go one step further, and what we will do is we'll start a new chat, and instead of using GPT 4.1, I will be using Claude Sonnet 4, and Claude Sonnet 4 is way more thorough. So if I ask this question, I suspect it will start digging through my solution and coming up with a better result than GPT 4.1 will do. GPT 4.1 generally needs a more thorough prompt to cover everything that needs to be done. And as you can see, it starts looking at my solution here. It's finding even the planes controller, flights controller. And as you can see, it's using the 3 questions again, and it starts with one question. Data management approach. Looking at your existing controllers, I can see they use in-memory static lists. Would you like me to follow the same pattern with static lists or something different? So, and then I can, of course, iterate. So in memory, and then it will hopefully go to the next question. So then question 2 is API endpoints and functionality. Option A, B, C, oh, that leaves no room for ambiguity, right? Basic CRUD, enhanced functionality. So let's be a little bit ambiguous and say option B, because within option B there are still a lot of variations. But again, well, it says it has enough information apparently. So specialized error since no, it's actually iterating over this question, and it wants me to indicate what kind of functionalities it needs. So yeah, let's see, aviation specific operations. Yeah, that sounds good to me. So let's do that. And let's see if it gets to the next question. It's very, very thorough. Okay, I'm not going down this rabbit hole. I guess you get the point. In the end, it will come up with a nice prompt that I can use. But it's really triggering me now to, to think what I want. So this is one of the use cases you can use this custom mode for. Of course, there are many more use cases, and I would be really interested in your cases. So if you can, let me know. Thanks. Custom instructions is a way to instruct Copilot on specific settings or specific preferences that you have for your coding environment. So an example would be if you use Python and you're using an older version, you can add that to the instructions, to an instructions file. And by doing so, Copilot knows that it shouldn't give any suggestions that only work in a newer version of Python. To do so, in the .github folder, what you can do is you can add a Copilot-instructions file. This is a markdown file where you can put these instructions. For some people, it's hard to come up with a fill for this file, but you can also leave it empty and start working on your project. And whenever you've got the feeling that Copilot is repetitively giving suggestions that don't apply to your situation whatsoever, is to add instructions to this file, and these instructions are sent along with every chat request that you do here on the right hand side. Sometimes people want to have a fill in this file or to have at least suggestion, so now a new tool is built in. What you can do is I can click the cog here and then click generate instructions. And what this will do is it will take a look at your project and it will extract practices, framework versions, any settings, etc., and we'll add that to the Copilot-instructions file. So this can take a little while because it's looking into my entire project to find anything that will help to create a pre-fill of this file. As you can see, it takes a little while and asks me now to continue to iterate. So this sometimes happens in agent mode, and I can safely click continue, and then it will continue its work. There we go. As you can see, it generated a whole lot of stuff to be put in the Copilot instructions.md. So what it did is it already used any instructions that are already there, like for example, always use var instead of explicit types. Here you can see C# use var for obvious types. But then there's of course more React, use functional components and hooks, navigation via React router DOM, which is something that's not in here. So it derived that from our code base. So this can be a great starting point. In some cases, it might be maybe a little bit too much. Again, this is sent along with every chat request. So if you need more inspiration, what you can do is you can visit the awesome Copilot repository. So github.com/github/awesome Copilot. And what it has is it has custom instructions files for any environment, well, not any, but for a lot of environments. So if I scroll here, what you can see is there's API.NET REST API development. So if we click that, it would take us to a custom instructions file that we can just use. So, and in this case, it even only applies to C# files and JSON files. So it doesn't do any front end. Yeah, with that, you can make more specific instructions files. But yeah, this is a great repository. Take a look at it. I hope this helps you. When using the terminal in Visual Studio Code, from agent mode, Copilot can run commands in the terminal. And some commands are sensitive, like deleting a file. Some commands are not sensitive generally, like, for example, listing the directory contents. And when you're using agent mode, you need to approve all of these commands to be executed, right, in the terminal. What you can now do is you can define commands that don't need approval. So that means that Copilot will automatically execute them. And let me show that. So in the settings of Visual Studio Code, what you can now do is type in terminal allow list. And what you see here is the allow list that is available. And I configured already some commands to be allowed. In this case, it's PowerShell. So set location, which is change directory, write host, which writes to the output, get child item, which lists items in a directory, and remove item, which removes. And as you can see, they all have a value. All of them are true, except for the remove item. So that means that Copilot can execute the first four without having without having an approval, and the last one it will always request an approval. This is the allow list. You can also have deny list. No, obviously, deny would overrule allow. So what you can do is you can do a broad allow and then a narrow deny if there is a lot of commands that you want to cover. And as you can see, I used regex here. So you can either do plain text or regex, but as it is case sensitive, regex makes sense here. So I use that. So this is what I configured. As you can imagine, there's a lot to this. So Microsoft is still considering a default fill of this allow list, which can then be changed by you. But you know, to have at least a default fill. Keep also in mind that settings are merged across scopes. So if you have a settings.json in your .vs Code folder of your repository, and you have one in user settings, it will merge those. All right, so let's take a look what this does. I will close the settings and I will ask in agent mode using a different model. So I will use GPT, not GPT, but Cloud.net to be sure that this demo will work. So what I'm asking is to run get child item and remove item in the terminal. I want them to run line by line because, you know, if it runs get child item and then pipes that to remove item, it will not work. So there is some risk involved in this case, the way I configured it, but of course with tweaking the regexes, you can make it much more reliable. But this worked for me, so I'm asking it to do to list the directory contents and then remove a file. And of course, listing a directory contents, it should do that without my consent in this case. And then removing the item, I don't want it to do that without my consent. So as you can see, it's changing directory to where my files are. It does get child item, and now when it gets to remove item, it's asking me, hey, are you sure that you want to do this? I need to ask for your consent, so I'm doing that. And for now, I will cancel. But of course, you can then continue, and then it will obviously remove that file. So this will greatly improve the performance of agent mode when running stuff in terminal. I can also imagine that, you know, compiling your application would be one that you want to include. Yeah, and then maybe other things, not where things really get changed. So that's completely up to you, of course, but you have seen how to configure it. So I hope you can use this to your advantage. What I can do now is I can, from a historical chat, I can take a prompt of myself and I can click an edit button here. I can then change the prompt that I did, enter, and it will re-execute that specific prompt. The way this works can be configured. So if we go to settings and we search for Copilot Chat edit request, you can see here that there is a configuration to change that we can change. So the default behavior is input. So that means that if I click the pencil button, it will take the prompt that where I clicked the pencil button will be copied into the input window at the bottom here, and then I can edit from there and send it. There is other ways. So what we can also do is hover. So if we change it to hover, I can hover over this and then click it and then edit it, and it will take me here in a box above instead of the box below. By clicking escape on my keyboard, I'm back again, and the last mode is inline, and now I can just click this prompt and it will inline, I can inline edit it. And as you can see, there's not a lot of difference between hover and inline. But yeah, I would suggest to experiment a little bit with it and see for yourself what works best. MCP servers went GA. An MCP server is the glue between GitHub Copilot and any API out there. There are, and it is becoming really easy to add an MCP server. So what you can do is you can go to extensions here. And as you can see, there is actually a tab MCP servers, and in this case I have one installed. So what you can also do is you can search here for @MCP, and then it will filter only by MCP servers. And what you can do here is you can click MCP servers, and that will take you to a web page that will drag in here. And it shows the MCP servers that Microsoft suggests to use in Visual Studio Code. So there's a huge amount of MCP servers available. Be always very careful because there is some security risks still going along with them. The internet is full of stories on where the risks are, so I'm not going to explain them here, but be aware about this. So these are suggested MCP servers. The one I installed is the github.com MCP server. So if I go back to the unfiltered view, as you can see, the GitHub MCP server is here. I can right-click it from here. I can even control it, like stopping and restarting a server, because mine is already started, so you can't start it, of course. And you can see to which account it is linked. Because the GitHub MCP server, I'm using the remote server now, so it's not hosted locally on my machine, but remotely by github.com. I need to log in using OAuth. So that's great. It's way better for security than storing your personal access token somewhere locally. So that's the GitHub MCP server. I'll do a very brief demo on this MCP server to show you what it can do. So let me get back here so you can see a little bit more. What the GitHub MCP server can do, for example, is get the first 3 issues from my GitHub repository. And let's see, because I think this one is empty. It doesn't have any issues. But it will ask me to run an API request to retrieve those. And in this case, apparently, I already approved this, so it ran automatically. As you can see, this is the input it sent. So it's looking in this repository owned by me. It will only show 3. It will only retrieve the first page, and it's empty because I don't have any issues. So, but this is the idea of an MCP server, that it interacts with external resources. The GitHub Copilot coding agent is something that became recently available. It's a great feature where if you have an issue in a GitHub repository, you can assign the coding agent and it will just start working on that issue for you, implementing it, creating a PR, and you will be able to review the changes, iterate over the changes, etc. Really powerful. What you can now do is from Visual Studio Code, from the chat, the agent mode, you can hand over any change to the coding agent. So let's get started with a simple change. So what we will do is in agent mode with GPT 4.1, I'm going to add the engine sound property to the plane model. So I hope you can imagine what that will do. It will add a new property. Maybe it needs to be made available in other classes. So let's see what it will do. It's of course going to start analyzing my solution and where it needs to be added. As you can see, it's opening up the plane model, so it discovered, hey, we're talking about planes, so I need to add that to the plane model, and the engine sound property has been added. So that's great. That's just a part of it. I'm going to keep this change, and what I'm going to do next is hand it over to the Copilot coding agent. So let's see if we can make this work. So here you can see I want it to improve the changes by making them visible in the GUI. And then I use #Copilot coding agent. What this will do is it will instruct Copilot to create a new branch on github.com. And then in that branch, it will start working on a PR. So let's see what happens. And as you can see, it's taking a look at the front end, if it can find the front end. So it might take a little while. And then once it has collected enough information, it can send the information to the coding agent. All right, there we go. Start coding agent. The coding agent will continue to work on show engine sound property in plain GUI. So I can continue now, and as you can see that it will create a new branch, and any uncommitted changes will be automatically pushed, of course, because we already made changes and it will take that to that branch. So I click continue, and now it's launching the coding agent. So it's going to be interesting. What we can do, we can actually follow this whole process from within Visual Studio Code. So while it's going to start, what I can explain is that it will create a pull request. And inside of a pull request, there will be a generated description of what it should do. As you can see, it already switched to a different branch here. Copilot / VS Code and then a number. You can see it's pushed to the remote branch. And now let's see what the coding agent will make of it. I've improved your changes, that's great. You can track the progress or review the pull request here. So I can click it and it will open up a browser. But if you have the pull request extension installed in Visual Studio Code, then you can open it there from there as well. So as you can see, it's prefixed the title with WIP, which is work in progress. As long as the coding agent is working, it will show that, and once it's done, it will remove the work in progress. Here, as you can see, it explains what I asked it to, expose the new engine sound property in the front end, and then and in the GUI. So it's working on that, and as you can see, it does this from my account, but then the Copilot coding agent was assigned to it and is working on it right now. It's still work in progress. I guess it already changed some files, so I can check that here and go over it and take a look at what it changed. It's also my chat mode file, but the main thing is about changes to the plane, and here plane.ts is of course the GUI, so it added it here as well. So handing it over to the coding agent makes the whole process asynchronous, because you can continue to work on another feature while the coding agent is taking care of your first change. And then it's time for some smaller features. One of the features is that you can now maximize the Copilot chat view. So here is the maximize button. I click it, it's maximized, and then I can go back by clicking it again to the previous size. So that's one option. Another option is when you open the command palette using F1 or Ctrl-Shift-P, you can ask it to show chat debug view. And what this does is it will show a debug of all of your chats. So this is great if you're really running into issues, you need to contact GitHub support, and you want to provide them with additional context. So it will show you everything on what is sent to GitHub Copilot. Keep in mind that it might contain personal data, so always review anything that you would send to GitHub support or maybe your internal support before sharing these files. It is really interesting to take a look around at what's happening here. Another small feature is that we can snooze the inline completions for a short amount of time. So if I open up a file, a code file, like a controller, what I have here is the Copilot menu at the right-hand bottom, and there is now the snooze button, which will hide completions for 5 minutes. So if you're doing something very specific, you don't want any completions, it's a very quick way to disable them temporarily, and then you can enable them after that. So yeah, that's a great little feature. Then the last thing we're going to show is from the terminal. What you can now do, let's go to the right directory. Yep, this one. This is where my current project is. And what I can now do is I can type code to start Visual Studio Code, chat, find all untyped variables. And this will open up a new Visual Studio Code, or in this case, wow, it found the Visual Studio Code that I had already open, and it will execute that question in this case. And you can even append -- mode and then either ask edit or agent to indicate which mode you want to use.